It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Forum here on Eagle Community Television. Our Forum program is brought to you by Hayes Med. We have a special guest today who's been to Africa and back. I don't know if you call it Out of Africa program or not, but his name is Nick Eiden. And Nick is just back from Africa. Spent a full year there after being on the Hayes Police Department, on the Hayes Police Force for 4 years. So, Nick, good to have you on our program.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I'm sure those watching are having a question like, how does somebody off of the Hayes Police Force end up in Africa for over a year? And so we'll talk about that. What was your decision process for going to Africa?
Well, it's funny. It was, for such a big decision, it wasn't a very long one. I came home for lunch one day. My wife, Sarah, had been on Facebook reconnecting with one of her friends from middle school. And she said, hey, I was talking to Courtney, and they've got this new organization they're starting to support a school, and I think I'd like to go for a little bit. And so I looked at her and said, well, sure, let's all go. Where is it? She goes, Uganda. I went, oh, okay. But we started praying about it, and we talked about it some more, and really within just a couple days, we were pretty sure that that was something we were supposed to do.
And so you ended up, I guess, taking a leave of absence from your job at the police department initially.
Not exactly. I did outright resign.
You outright resigned?
So policy just didn't quite match up. So.
And so you were going there. What was your initial length of stay for? What was your planned length of stay?
We didn't have a real solid date. We knew it was going to be sometime around a year, and that was about as solid as we could plan out for it. We ended up staying just around 9 months.
It's an exciting adventure, I'm sure. For those of us that are from Hayes, you grew up where?
I grew up in Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs, so in the Midwest. You take a look at that and you're going, okay, what's the difference between here and there? Uganda, what was it like? Give an example
Sure.
of what you would see if you were to go to the school where you taught and what it was like every day.
Sure. Well, the biggest difference you'd notice immediately is climate. There's not winter, and there's really one season, except when it rains. They have wet season and dry season. So about 10 or 11 months of the year, it's 80 degrees and a little bit humid. It's kind of like just being on summer all the time. But as far as the actual school goes, the first thing you notice is a different quantity of resources, especially materially. The schools here are very well equipped. There's very organized classrooms and large facilities. Even what we would consider, a poor school or a less affluent school has a certain number of students, certain number of teachers, hallways, organization, all that type of thing. Whereas the school we're helping with is for the very materially poor. And the school itself doesn't have as many resources, of course. And so you'll see one big room with a few dividers set up for 4 or 5 different classes. And things like books and libraries and computers. The school we were blessed with electricity most days, and we had a couple of light bulbs. We didn't have a rack of iPads to roll out or a smart board. And so the whole methodology of teaching was very different. One of the things that we worked on was introducing books into the classroom, and we were able to run a drive. My mother-in-law actually supported this. She's a librarian, and so she got a lot of books and was able to provide them to the school. And so we would work with the students to enjoy books, and this is what a book is, and it's not just a textbook. Sometimes we would have a story, and sometimes we'd have a textbook or just nonfiction, fiction, all of that, as well as working with the teachers to incorporate that to their lessons, and how can we relate this type of thing to that.
It's amazing because it was almost a square one start, because this is a relatively new school anyway, correct?
Yes and no. The program itself has been in existence for several years, but it is now grown to the point that it's officially recognized by the Ugandan government. It's supported by an NGO recognized in both the U.S. and Uganda, and so it's grown significantly over the last several years.
When you got up every morning, what was it like?
Well, if anybody knows my family, it was early. Between my 1-year-old and my 3-year-old, we like to get up pretty early. We had an apartment, a couple bedrooms and a kitchen, and we'd get up and have breakfast kind of like we would here. And then once that front door opened, you realized it was a little different.
Did you have an automobile or bike or scooter?
We did. We lived in Kampala, which is a big city, almost 2 million people, and so we did have a car that we bought when we got there, and it was an adventure to drive. I've never driven in a place like Africa before where there are rules, but a lot of them are implied, and a lot of it's based on getting where you want to go rather than order and safety. So it was definitely an adjustment, especially coming from the police department and knowing all the mind your P's and Q's on how you drive to we're going to go now. Okay, let's go.
And blinkers weren't necessarily used at all or even available.
Sometimes, right.
Well, it's interesting because when you look at what we do in our country, and sometimes you see all these things we have, and you kind of take that for granted. But you're back 10, 20, 100 years ago in the American type educational system?
Yeah, educational and otherwise. Infrastructure is definitely behind. And a lot of that's because the economy is behind. They are actually, Uganda itself is experiencing, along with other parts of Africa, their oil boom. And a lot of industry and businesses in that field are coming in. And so you can see already the changes and the influx of money in the economy, as well as more Western influence idea-wise. And so that includes education also. So.
Now, you'd mentioned earlier that there was this is a faith-based program, interdenominational, but a Christian-based program. How did that tie into what you were doing at the school?
Well, it was a Christian school, and so similar to here, there's math and reading and writing and all of those academic type topics, but we would also discuss faith and Christianity and how that ties into your life.
Is it good to be back?
It's good to be back. Yeah, it was good to be there. And there's no one word that describes it. Adventure comes close, but it doesn't really do it justice as to what it was. But at the same time, it's good to be home. So.
Now, what would your wife and kids say? Because it was initially your wife that thought of this idea. She was a teacher at the school.
Yes.
And did that change from a mom standpoint? Now you have two kids that are involved with what you'd say more of a normal life here than what they were there?
My children, my oldest one is 3.5, and he kind of understands. Geography is not his strong suit yet. He is always asking us where we are. Are we in Uganda? Are we in America? And is this America or is this Kansas? Well, it's both. Sorry.
If he's only 3, we'll give him a little bit of leeway there.
But he remembers his friends. He remembers the goats that were across the street and that type of thing. And I think it was a great experience for him as well as the rest of us.
Well, a couple of things. Uganda's not easy to get to. That's one of the things. We'll talk about travel. We'll also talk about others that may be interested in this, because coming back after being through that experience, you have a brand new career. So we'll talk about that as well. Our guest is Nick Eiden, and he's just returned from a trip to Africa. Back with more after this.
Youthful body, tight tummy, smooth facial lines. Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery is here to help you achieve your goals and give yourself the new look you've always wanted. Greystone offers sophisticated surgical and non-surgical cosmetic procedures. With services now available locally, there's no need to wait any longer. Contact Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery at Hayes Medical Center today, or online at greystonecosmetic.hayesmed.com.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications. Our community connected.
Welcome back to the second half of our Forum program here on Eagle Community Television. Our Forum is brought to you by Hayes Med. If you have any questions, comments, ideas, suggestions, if you've been somewhere, maybe to Africa or somewhere else, we'd like to hear from you as well. Send me a note at gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. You can also go online to Facebook, and if you look on Facebook and type in ECTV Forum, you can find us there. We'll also have these programs airing on Eagle Community Television. You'll be able to find them on our Hayes Post site. Our guest is Nick Eiden, and Nick, who was with the Hayes Police Department, he and his wife headed to Africa, spent 9 months over there in a school teaching. And Nick, Coming back, you're coming back to a new career. Tell us about your new career.
Sure. Like you said, when I left, I was with Hayes Police Department, and that was a great time in my life.
And you were in the school system then.
I was assigned as a school resource officer, which meant I got to spend almost all of my time either in schools or with kids, and I really enjoyed that. It was a good fit for me. And when we left, the plan was to come back and probably pursue that again. However, God had a different plan for us. While we were in Uganda, I felt Him calling me to something else, and I explored that as best I could, and I feel He's called me to be a pastor instead. So actually while there, after some research and consulting with our pastors, I've started seminary, and I'll pursue a degree for that, and actually now I get to be the youth pastor up at Celebration Church.
Well, it's an exciting time. I'm sure they'll welcome you back with your experience and being a part of that.
It's been great, yes.
Someone else wants to do what you did. Would
Okay.
you recommend it to them?
I recommend that they do if they feel that that's what God wants them to do. And I would strongly suggest a lot of good research and making sure they know what they're getting into.
Is that because it's not easy?
Day-to-day life is not always easy, no. It's very different, and I always want to make sure I clarify. It's not better and it's not worse, it's just very different. And so one of the first things that the organization leaders told us is, whatever you expect, forget it, because it's not going to be what you expect. No matter what you know going into it, be flexible. And so if somebody wants to go into it, I strongly suggest they weigh that with prayer and wise counsel, but also find what it is that they would be doing to help. Don't say, I want to go to Africa and I want to help, so here I go. Find something that you're passionate about and that you can impart to either an individual or a group or part of society that will leave a mark and help them in whatever area it is, but continue helping them even after you leave or you move on.
You and I were kind of joking earlier and about how sometimes we associate Africa with giraffes, elephants, and being eaten by a tiger.
Right.
That wasn't this case. I know you guys had a chance to actually take a tour, and that had to be kind of the vacation part of that trip.
It was, yeah.
But for the most part, were you ever concerned about food, water, safety of your family?
Well, we were in Kampala, which is a very large city.
Very big city.
Depending on who you listen to, almost 2 million people. And so it's like, first of all, it's like living in any other big city. It's a little different than living in Hayes. Hayes is a pretty safe community. Wichita, Kansas City, Denver, you have different concerns and different measures you might take to be safe. And so we just adapted most of those personal safety type things, being aware and watching where you put your money, that type of thing. And that pretty much took care of any criminal concern. As far as lions and animals, that type of thing, we had goats.
Not so much.
The neighbors had some goats and some chickens.
As long as they weren't attack goats, you were in
That's
good
right,
shape.
exact guard goats.
Yeah.
We did have the opportunity to go on safari over Christmas holiday. It was beautiful and great, but we had to go a long way from the city to see those type of animals that would have actually posed much risk to us.
How long was your flight over and back?
Well, the different segments from start to end took about 32 hours, plus the 9-hour time change. So we were a little backwards and goofy by the time we got where we were going, but it worked out okay. The kids did surprisingly well. So you had asked about food and water. Water came in a bottle, or we didn't drink it, but it was available everywhere and not too expensive, so that wasn't much of a concern. And food, we did our research. We knew what was a good idea for us to eat and what wasn't as good of an idea. And once we stuck to that pretty well, we all were very blessed to be very healthy. So
My guess is the food is not what you see, and you can't go to a McDonald's and order a burger.
there's not a McDonald's. Right before we left, they built their first international fast food, and KFC came to
KFC was
Uganda, and it tasted surprisingly similar. But we were able to.
Were you first in line?
No,
Yeah.
we waited. But as far as produce, it was amazing. It's very agricultural, very fertile land there, and so we had beautiful avocados and tomatoes and pineapples and onions and all those type of things, which can easily be incorporated into the local traditional fare or more American style food. But again, we were in a big city with an ever-increasing international influence, so we could also go to the supermarket and buy noodles, or even we found a couple places that serve pizza, which you wouldn't think would be a big deal, but it's pretty great when you find a reasonably good pizza. So,
well, one of the things somebody that's watching may want to go and, because you had a blog that you went and you kept everybody up to date on that blog. Can people still go and kind of follow your path and what you did?
Sure. You can check in with us. It's theeidens.weebly.com. That's theeidens.weebly.com, WEEBLY.
And we'll put that on the screen so that somebody can do that, or they can chase me down afterwards if they want to check that blog, because that does a great kind of history of what you did, not only day by day, but kind of as you traveled on that process.
That's kind of our perspective of the journey as far as getting there and what we did, and even coming back a little bit. You can also check in with the NGO that we were with at akahope.org. akahope.org was the organization we were with. So.
Very good. Well, Nick, good to have you back in Hayes.
Thank you.
To see you around our community and your wife and kids as they grow up. And frankly, to be able to take that kind of time away to do that is a special, and I'm sure it was a good, very good for the school and the people over there as well.
Thank you very much.
Nick Eiden's been our guest here on the Forum here on Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching. The Forum is brought to you by Hayes Med and by Eagle Communication, our community connected.
Youthful body, tight tummy, smooth facial lines. Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery is here to help you achieve your goals and give yourself the new look you've always wanted. Greystone offers sophisticated surgical and non-surgical cosmetic procedures. With services now available locally, there's no need to wait any longer. Contact Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery at Hayes Medical Center today or online at greystonecosmetic.hayesmed.com.